12 years ago, I co-founded a startup, and we launched a product. And it went amazing. It was an overnight success. We made so much money. That's it. Of course not. I just wanted to see your faces. So we fared miserably. What really happened? Let's go into that. We worked on a product for 1.5 years because we thought we had an amazing idea. We delivered it, and nobody cared about it. Basically, we haven't shown any value for our users. And we knew that we need to change something, and we need to pivot and create something that's useful. But also, we knew that we already built some technology that we can build on. And that was social media content, visual social media content aggregation. So getting images from Twitter, Instagram, and other sources. So we ran an experiment. The experiment was that we created 7 different value propositions that were about this technology. And based on these 7 different value propositions, we created 7 different landing pages. And each landing page looked like the same background, the simple sentence, and a simple form. Give your email address here if you're interested. And for all these pages, we bought traffic. So basically, Google ads, Facebook ads, and so on. And we started to measure. And we figured that one of the value propositions had 10 times better conversion than all the others. And if you don't know what Tumblr is, my summer child, 12 years ago it was a big thing. It was a visual blog engine. You could build microblogs with it. And these Tumblr users had a big problem. To grow your blog, you needed to post around 10 to 20 images a day. And that's hard work to find that many images. So that's where our aggregation thingy came in, and we were able to recommend content for them based on their blogs. So we continuously started to run experiments. And I'm quite glad that Dima mentioned all this, actually similar experiments that he was mentioning. Because we knew that not all of our ideas are amazing, and we wanted to test which features are really creating value for our users. And actually, every week, for every feature, we started to measure weekly retention. And by that, we mean people did something on our website, and a week later, they came back again, and they posted from the website. And for every feature idea, we started to measure, is it improving this weekly retention or not? And if not, then we ditched it. But then we had the hard realization that it's not at all easy. And if you start to think about what could be hard to come up with all these ideas or deliver these features, or actually to do continuous deployment, that wasn't the hard part. The hard part was metrics. We had a 4-developer team, or 4-person development team, and one person from that was always working on metrics, either maintaining the environment or the infrastructure, or setting up these experiments. And it was our most important resource, because with these experiments, we could really figure out the features that are making sense. And when we pinpointed these features, we could evolve those further. So on the end, we really built something that was valuable. Actually, in 6 months, we gained 130,000 registered users, and 10% of them were weekly active users. But then we ran out of money, and we shut down the company. Oh, yeah. Well, you could ask why the hell I'm talking about a startup that failed 12 years ago. Because AI kind of changed the game, and especially it changed how we deliver early-stage products, and especially MVPs. But I would say the metrics part haven't got easier, because I started to build products later, and it's still a good amount of work. And I kind of get to the same problems as I was getting 12 years ago. So I would like to go through my experience and basically talk about the tools that we were using for metrics and experiments. And maybe you can learn from my mistakes and not spend that much time on maintaining metrics infrastructure. So for the startup, we were using Mixpanel. And back then, it was a new tool. It was a new and shiny, amazing tool. It looked amazing, and also it did everything. Like, you could do funnels in it, retention, even you can reach out to users. So it seemed like an amazing choice. And we started to set it up. And it looks easy because it's just a simple JavaScript API. You just need to call some functions, and right away you would have metrics. But then we started to notice that some of the dashboards weren't matching our expectations. For example, we had too many sessions compared to what we were seeing on the traffic. And also, when we started to think about retention, we had different ideas about retention metrics that we can see on the retention metrics of Mixpanel. So to circumvent this, we needed to figure out how we are exactly using the API and are we using it correctly. So we needed to verify, and the only way to verify is to see the raw events and figure out what's there, and based on that, figure out the metrics, and then verify that to Mixpanel. But unfortunately, Mixpanel is not giving you these metrics. You cannot really get the raw data. So for that, we needed a second opinion, and for that, we were using a time series database. We were self-hosting it on AWS called InfluxDB. You don't need to remember it. It was a shiny new tool 12 years ago, but now nobody uses it, so never mind. But my advice is to do not self-host. We self-hosted this. It ran out of memory many times. Because of that, we lost the metrics. Because of that, we had to repeat metrics for weeks and weeks. So that was quite painful. And also, don't use the new shiny tool. Metrics is something that's quite old of a problem, so you can use tools that are well established and not having memory leaks and so on. Another thing that you would need is feature flags, and I'm really glad that Dima talked about it. But I'm going to talk about a different aspect of it, because you would need to have feature flags for feature validation that is tied to sessions, because you would like to give the consistent experience for your users, that they see the same feature, or they see the same features turned on or off, or the A or B version of a certain feature throughout their session. And it sounds easy because you just use a tool. 12 years ago, there weren't many tools, but also, even if there is a tool, you would need to create a setup where feature flags are general. And by that, I mean it's readily available anywhere in your application. And that's not that easy. To give you an example, with our application, we had a recommendation engine that had nothing to do with the front end. It was a worker that figured out the recommendation. But it's also something that we wanted to test. Different versions of it, are these improving the weak retention or not? And for that, you would need to have feature flags that are available anywhere. And for either that, you need to get the session ID to make available anywhere in the application, or the feature flags themselves. And I already started to talk about these session IDs. Usually, these metrics tools are calling them distinct IDs. And that's the hard part. So let's go into a bit what's happening in the background in a tracking tool. So usually, you just include some JavaScript, and you will have a tracking tool object. We call it tracking tool here, but it's Mixpanel, Posthook, or something like that. And you call the init function on it. To that, you need to pass your application ID to identify your application, and an object where you can have configuration. But what's important with the init function, that it creates a new distinct ID for that session. And from then on, it's going to store it in memory, or in local storage, or in cookies, or actually in both. And in each track, it's going to send that distinct ID to the backends, so that's how you will be able to see funnels or sessions on that application. But what's also important, that usually these tools are having this feature called identify. And it's a really nice feature because you can identify the user based on your internal user IDs. And what's really nice about it, that you can connect sessions themselves as well. So you can basically track people if they're coming back, it's the same session or the same person, so you can really check behavior. And it looks easy, but actually, we were seeing too many sessions, and we figured that sometimes when you track simple page views, and in the same page you would identify the user because the user came back, there could be race conditions. And sometimes the track method fires first, and then the identify fires later, and that would be a different session. So you really need to make sure that the identify is firing first it ends because there is an HTTP request in the background, and then you are able to track anything else. As I mentioned, the startup failed, and after that, I did other things, but 7 years later, I joined Datadog. And we already had a Datadog talk today. Just use Datadog. It does everything. End of talk. Goodbye. Well, after Datadog, I started to work for a client, and I kind of became their tech lead. It was a US-based startup. It's a B2B business. By B2B, we mean it's a business that's working for other businesses. And it's different to the product that I was mentioning because it wasn't end customers, but rather businesses. So in many cases, you need to think differently about metrics and actually feature flags. The business is called bars.com. It's still up and running. I'm just not working for them anymore. It's about liquor sampling in the US. You can go into a bar, and through a mobile web application, you are able to order free liquor to taste in that bar. Let's talk about the metrics part. So my idea was really just use Datadog. Datadog is amazing. They do everything besides observability. So we put everything into Datadog. But then we figured that, on one hand, Datadog only remembers data for 3 months. And you can circumvent that, but it was quite hard. We were talking with the support, and even though I worked at Datadog, I couldn't figure that out. So it's really not them, it's me. But also, we figured that Datadog is amazing for observability, and they have a good amount of user tracking features, but still, it's not that easy to build these type of dashboards that you would need to have for experiments. So we, again, needed a second opinion, and for that, we used the Google spreadsheet hack. And if you remember a single thing from this presentation, this should be it, because this is amazing. So to set that up, you need a Google form. And in Google form, you can set it up in a way that the responses of that Google form are going to be stored in a Google spreadsheet. And when you submit that form and open developer tools, you can check the form data. And you can figure out, based on the values that you were putting in, that every field has a key. A key usually looks like entity dot and something. So you can check all the keys. So now you have all your fields. And you can also check the post URL. And what's really nice about this URL, that they are not checking any type of cookies or anything like that. And also, they are not checking the origin. So with this couple of lines of JavaScript, you can basically post a new line to a Google spreadsheet without authentication from anywhere in your application, from the backend, from the front end, anything like that. And this gets you quite far. With Excel, you can build, you can really do this second opinion and figure out the raw details. But also, you can build front ends easily, like really figure out dashboards on it and so on. But also, your business stakeholders are mostly also familiar with Excel. And for example, in our case, our business stakeholders needed to figure out what's the accounting between bars.com and the bars, so how much they have spent on free drinks. And we didn't need to build any front end for that and admin features. They were able to track that through Excel, and that's it. And the company was already making money, but the majority of the backend was just a spreadsheet on Google Cloud. So if I would be able to bring a single software to a deserted island to survive, that would be definitely Excel. That is capable of everything. But when you are getting bigger and bigger queries and more complicated stuff, then maybe you would need to have SQL for that. And in the case of a B2B business, usually you don't have a big traffic in the beginning. So it's totally fine to just store those raw events into a SQL database and just write queries based on that, and that's it. So let's talk about the feature flag part. Because with a B2B business, you don't necessarily need this notion of turning on or off a feature or show A or B version of something based on a session ID. Because B2B businesses tend to be more sales-driven, and the salesperson already agreed with the client that they will have this feature set. So for that, it's totally fine to just have a JSON file and describe what's going to happen with that client and use that for that client, and that's it. And if your business stakeholders are able to edit JSON files and can use Git, then you are golden. If not, then just put it into a single database, like even PostgreSQL is able to store it as a JSON blob. And you can use custom tools like Hex, or even just vibe coding tools like Lovable to build the admin features. And you don't need to spend days and days and weeks building the whole configuration part of the software. And now I'm working on another product. I joined Product Kind, where we are building this tool called Little Parrot. And with Little Parrot, we figured a problem that with vibe coding tools, quite a new variety of people are able to write applications. And before vibe coding tools, most of the people that were able to write applications kind of look like this. And we don't want to enable more of these people because they are happy already, but rather people more like the looking them. Yeah. Because small business owners and quite a few people that are not having background in coding could really benefit from it. And our product is a similar product to Duolingo, so it's a microlearning app. Just we are not teaching a language, but rather vibe coding and product skills. And AI have changed the game, not just for our customers, but also how we build this product. Because the founder of Product Kind started this product in 6 weeks on a hackathon using Lovable. And I was amazed how far she got compared to what was possible like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And for metrics, we started to use PostHog. And actually, let's talk about the good parts, but also not everything is happy about PostHog. It also does everything. And it seems easy. It has the exact same looking API as all the other tools. But it has proper SQL. So you can really check the raw data, and you can run SQL queries on it. So you can really verify if something is not some measurement is not looking properly. And I promise you, you're going to have that experience. It also supports reverse proxies, so you can track people that are using ad blockers. And it's also not crazy expensive. They don't charge really just for the usage, so they don't have a minimum fee just to subscribe. And it's also nice that they have integrated feature flags. And what's nice about it, that it's also a general solution. Usually, what I've seen with feature flag tools, that they just have a similar thing that you are able to use it in the JavaScript API. But with PostHog, it's really a general API that you can get from anywhere. So on your backend, in your services, anything like that. And also, each of the measured events would have the underlying feature flag information. So let's talk about the not so nice part of PostHog. The doc is vast and big, and they are supporting a good amount of different platforms, so like mobile applications, web applications, even server-side rendering and everything. But because of this, a certain technology stack is not always proper. The API looks trivial because the same as the others, but actually we've seen the similar problems with it, for example, these too many sessions problems. And first we just thought, okay, let's ask Lovable to integrate PostHog, and that's it. And also, when we figured out our problems, we started to use more nuanced tools like Cursor and Cloud Code. But actually, because it's a not trivial API, also these AI tools are messing them up. So you really need to double check that and also figure out what went wrong there. So do this if you don't want to spend that many weeks of debugging that we did. If you are using a simple React application, in the documentation, you would see that the provider there is not looking exactly like this. And what we have seen in PostHog, that it wasn't measuring page view events. And we couldn't see why, but in the documentation, it says for the PostHog provider that you're just able to put there the options there and also the key, and it will work right away. But those properties not going to work. You would need to say PostHog init before it and pass the whole post hoc object there, then it would track page view events. And it's not in the documentation, not even in a get started with React. It doesn't look like this. It's only something that you can find in forums. So do it this way if you are using it. Another problem that we have seen that we started experiments, and to run these experiments, especially with an early stage product, every new customer that comes in, and especially the ones that are coming back, are precious, because that's where you really see the behavior and where you really see the data. And we started to see with these people that were coming back that it wasn't in the A or in the B section of the experiment, but rather it started to show as mixed. And by that, post hoc means that they have seen both variations of that feature, the A or the B variation. And we were quite sad about it because mixed users wouldn't end up in the experiment and you cannot use them. Actually, with the SQL editor, you can figure out what happened exactly and we could use it, but it's still sad at the beginning. And if you read all the documentation around feature flags, even all the best practices and everything, you're not going to see anything useful there. So I went deeper, and I figured that the posthoc.init function is not just evaluating this distinct ID, but rather it's also evaluating the feature flags based on that distinct ID. But if it's a user that came back, on the next line, on the identify, it would figure, oh, it's the same user, and they already had a set of features set for them a couple of weeks ago or days ago. And these features are not necessarily matching. And you could have two different experiences. In the user experience, it's not going to show up because it's just a couple of milliseconds between these two lines. So you really need to make sure that the init function is not evaluating the feature flags. And for that, you need to use this third line, the advanced disable something, something, something. That's not in the documentation that how to get started, but rather if you read every configuration option in that object, you will find it. Now you don't have to because I found it for you. And just set it true, and that will mean init will not evaluate the feature flags only when you explicitly call a feature flag. So if you follow this advice, in one hand, maybe you will spend less time on debugging it, but also you should really dedicate time for it because it's not easy, and it's something that can really change the life of our startup. But we also would like to ask you to try our application and give us feedback, because we are really in the early stage, and we really want to learn anything useful that you could give us. And if you scan the QR code, you will see a Google form. And actually, based on that, we will send you a free coupon code later, and you can try the application. And if you try it, that would mean that we can use this amazing metric system that we have built. Thank you.